Awesome. Hello, product community. Thank you so much, all of you all, for joining this evening with us. We have Lalit with us, also Suhas. Hi, Lalit. Hi, Suhas. Good evening. Hi, awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah. So just a quick intro about the product, folks. Then we delve right into today's fireside chat. So the Product Folks is India's largest product community. At Product Folks, we continue to work hard and build a community that everyone from a newbie to a leader can gain value and grow in their VM careers. Just a bit about our community so far. We have more than 9 chapters. We have had more than 100 plus events. It's just been a year and few months since we started. We have a community of 15,000 people, and we also have a bunch of initiatives. One is Learn PM with, it's a curated set of content which can help newbies to refine their product thinking. And we also have another initiative which is the product teardown. So a lot of the community people had a problem. They used to ask us how to transition. Is there a way to showcase my skills? So we have come up with this product teardown and this Learn PM initiative. Do check both of them out. I'm going to drop the links in the chat section. Also, we have one uh, major announcement. One of our conferences are coming up next month. It is in the D2C space, and it's called Brands Decode. We're super excited about this conference. We have I pasted the link in chat section as well. We'll check it out. Again, thank you so much, Lalit, for taking your time to join us. Thanks so much. Over to you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Alan. I think great start to this event, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We've been trying to get Lalit for a long time on this series, on the Founder Story series, but finally managed to get his time. And hope you guys enjoy the next 60 minutes. Like Alan shared, I think today's fireside is just going to be digging a little deeper into his career. Like most of you all know, he built one of India's largest exits at that time, which was Commonfloor, and currently building out a very interesting product that we are currently using, Airmeet.com. So, Lalit, jumping right in without further ado, starting off with your early days, right? You graduated, worked for a year with Oracle, then moved and started your first startup. That ecosystem back then, 10 years back, wasn't as developed, right? Very, very early days, I think Flipkart was just getting started, little buzz in the market. So, what was that? How did you get your co founder? What was the idea? I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have thought of it becoming that. I mean, this is how I'm thinking. You might have not thought, and it's a different space, right? Not consumer internet. You guys were thinking about one specific. So, how did you come up with that problem? How do you think, okay, yeah, I want to leave my job and I want to do a startup? What is that thinking? How did you meet your co-founder? If you could walk us through that early days, that would be awesome.
Sure. Now, this would be early days of a startup which I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I think definitely the ecosystem back then was very, very nascent. And, just to give you a glimpse, the Thai events were the only networking events or startup events, so to say. Now, you can see these days Thai events are hardly countable. They are probably not the limelight. There are so many more events. So that this contrast is enough to explain that the ecosystem was so nascent that it was only the Indus Entrepreneurs Bangalore chapter which would actually do some sort of community building in the startup space. And then there were Mobile Mondays and Head Start had also started at that very time. It was early 2007, 2006, 7. So I've always been like a problem solver, right? And even Commonfloor was a solution to a problem that me and my co-founders faced, which was basically the difficulty in collaborating with for property management, and then also the associated difficulty in finding the right house, right? So that was a solution. And my co-founders back then were my friends from college. One was my friend from college, and the other one was my friend from high school. Right, so it was friends getting together. Yeah, but I would just like to stress upon the ecosystem. I think today the ecosystem is a lot more advanced. Angel funding is a lot more common. There is excitement, among working professional as well as HNIs to participate in these success stories, because they have seen exits that Flipkart has delivered, or let's say a lot of these other startups have delivered, right? So even a common well-earning Indian wants to join the startup story through a lot of angel syndicates, or doing some bit of angel investment on the side. That is actually very good, right? So it's basically money circling back into the new innovation, right? So that wasn't there, yeah, back when I started in 2008.
Got it, got it. And fast forward to today, or maybe when you started your second stint again, uh, what are some stark differences? Yes, definitely ecosystems, like you mentioned, in terms of funding and number of, people getting involved in the ecosystem has changed. Startups are no more, like they aren't as risky as back then, right? That time, I think it was harder to even recruit for startup. People were looking for those cushy jobs. That is definitely changed. But how did you come up with the idea of Airmeet, and what really excites you about this space?
So the earlier startup was into real estate, which was brick and mortar, absolutely in contrast with what we are doing today, right? So a couple of realizations from the previous journey, which and those were, first was, you know, uh, my intention was to build something global, because
Mm-hmm.
as as a professional, I've actually grown using global products like Google, Facebook, and Wikipedia. Right? There's a lot of respect for these global products, and there's this inherent aspiration to build something which is global, right? And the second wish list was that it should be a pure play product this time, right? Because in Commonfloor, the product was definitely important, but then it was just in the journey of the property buyer, it was solving a slice of a problem, right? It wasn't the real, I would say, the value which the
Mm-hmm.
buyer was actually expecting. It was not a complete solution.
Mm-hmm.
So these were the two wish lists, right? One was that it should be per play product, and second was it should be global. Right? And the
Yep.
third wish list was, it should be the problem of the next decade, right? And this was again 2018. So 2016 is when we, got into the deal with Quicker, and then 2017, 18, I took some personal time, and 2019 is when I seriously started to think about what next, right? And I wanted to actually pick a problem which will be big for the next decade, and the next decade is 2021 to 2029, right? So, and I was studying what are the tailwinds, and I was very sure that remote work and everything else which will change with work going remote is probably the next big thing, right? And that's the reason why my co-founders and I, we started to create a remote company first. And Airmeet wasn't an idea that we picked up, right? We did not even pick up an idea. We just started working together with this clear intention that we will be building a company together, and we started working remotely. I was in Noida. My other two co-founders were one, Manoj was in Kanpur, and Vinay was in Bangalore. Right? And we started working remotely, and the intention was to get into the shoes of the remote worker and see the world from their lens, right? And then we look at how should things be when almost everybody in the world becomes like a remote worker. And we have absolutely were not anticipating anything like this pandemic, right? But then we were getting ready for this distant future, which probably would have become mainstream in 2025 or 2026, right? Just like mobile was very nascent in 2008 and became mainstream in 2013, right? So that was the kind of readiness that we had in our minds. Uh, and then we when we looked at remote work as such, and we when we were trying to understand the problem space itself, we wanted to get in touch with other people who are pursuing remote work, right? And we then felt a dearth of meetups or conferences around remote work or around future work in India, right? And that was the stark realization that it's not just remote work. It's basically anybody who's pursuing a niche interest. It could be quantum computing. It could be, let's say, AI in legal, or it could be blockchain in digital identity. These are all niche topics. Like knowledge economy is now, growing into niche topics and micro domains. And anybody who's pursuing or pushing the boundaries of domains, they would face the same exact challenge of not finding the right community to catalyze around that idea, right? And ideas like product management itself, you guys run a community, and I'm sure you guys know the power of a community to bring an idea from a nascent stage to a mainstream stage. So 2008 product management wasn't something that people were aware of, right?
Yep.
People had to Google what is a product manager in 2008, but
Right.
it's because of the efforts of communities like product folks and a lot of these events and activations and so many other things which as a community you guys have done. It's now a mainstream thing, right? And exactly the same thing happened with blockchain. 10 years ago, blockchain was a very small concept, right? But then the whole blockchain community sort of championed the cause through meetups, conferences, seminars, and whatnot, right? So to make an idea from a nascent niche to a mainstream, these meetups and conferences are very important. And we thought if if the future of work, if so the two reasons. If the future of work makes people choose a location which they would want to work, they would move out of mainstream cities, and that would further accentuate the problem of not finding all the people which should be attending your meetup or your conference, right? So there should be a new way for organizing conferences and meetups in the future of work. That is what we thought, and that is what we started to build.
Very interesting. And you touched upon the point on COVID. So just bringing that, I think that was later on in the discussion. But since you brought it up, do you think this has accelerated a lot of things for you? Like for a lot of other industries, it has maybe been a deterrent, but in your case, do you think this has probably accelerated towards your entire product development roadmap because things have just gone remote? Conferences, a lot of things that used to have happen offline is now online. A lot of other people in the similar space. So are you inching closer towards that PMF really fast, or does that add a lot of more pressure, because a lot of things that you might have planned down the roadmap now needs to work super fast? So how are you looking at the entire situation today?
Sure. So this pandemic has been, in some sense, a good thing for us because it has brought everybody into our target group, right? Almost everybody in the knowledge economy is now working remotely, right? So to say they are right now the target group, right, or maybe the alpha customer for us, right? But then it has also brought in a lot of unnecessary attention to this domain, right? So so 2 points which are not which probably are not in favor for us. One is that it has attracted you know in so to say people who are compelled to do digital events, right? So this is a very new concept, right? And like any new concept, it has to be picked up by the early adopters and then the early majority and then the late majority and laggards, right? Only then this will see the full maturity, right?
Yep.
So people who were doing offline conferences, big offline conferences, which were like multi-million-dollar conferences, now they are also compelled to do a virtual event, right? And they are anyway looking at this format as a temporary, I would say, stopgap, or maybe they're looking down upon it, right?
Okay.
And you can actually see it very clearly because when they start a virtual event, they would say, I wish we weren't doing this virtually and all of that, right? So because they're looking down upon this, right? So for that bucket of customers who are doing an offline event, who had the monies, who had the budgets, right? For them, this is a step down, right? And they had so much of expectations from this virtual format that you should be able to do bells and whistles and whatnot, right? And sound effect and like 3D, etc. All of them were just thrust down upon startups which are working in this new domain. That was one of the, I would say, negative things. The second negative thing was it fueled a lot of competition. Because every event tech was a big space, right? So right from Bizabo or let's say ticketing softwares to website softwares like Ubilio, right? Everybody who was into event tech, they thought let's do Zoom integration and let's become a virtual event platform. That has actually further crowded the market, right? And they have picked up, either they've crowded the main segment or they have picked up something which probably would have been a great moonshot idea for us, right? So these are the two challenges as such, but we know for sure because we have seen this cycle before also, right? So we know that we have to pick something which is durable beyond COVID also. We shouldn't be left with zero customers or zero product usage after the COVID ends. So we deliberately chose to work with a segment which we love to call as digitally native customers, right? Digitally native events, right? Where these are the customers who are excited about the virtual format because they are for the first time able to do a global event. They were always doing local events, but it is for the first time that they are now able to do a virtual event. And it's clearly evident in even the starting of this thing. They're excited with a smile and they say it's great to see everybody join from all over the world. And they're not even mentioning about, we should have met in person. In person is going to be happenstance for them, right? Definitely, we're not replacing in person. It's about, if at all you want to do a global event, virtual should be your choice. And if you want to do a local event, definitely you can go and do a local event anytime, right? So
Absolutely.
we stuck with this digitally native customer, and I think it has given us really good returns. Our customer repeat is best in the class. Our active customer is doing 2 events every month, right?
Nice.
And we have a 70% customer to advocate customer ratio, right? Which means 70% of our repeat customers are actually advocates, and they keep referring more customers to Airmeet, right? So this
Yeah.
is this is this is because of our focus on the customers who come. See, a customer who is coming with a very high expectation, no matter what you do, you'll not be able to satisfy them, right? You probably, if you pick the right customer, you can satisfy them, delight them, and convert them into an advocate.
Right. We are actually waiting for your affiliate program because I think we were lucky to get on board when you guys were very early posts and take this feedback and build it out. So we are super excited about it and just waiting for you all to launch like this customer advocate. When you launch your affiliate, we'll be your number one
Absolutely, absolutely,
affiliates.
to us.
But no, thank you so much for sharing that journey. I think this starts off the conversation on a very interesting note. Good space to be in. Lot of interesting things. Couple of challenges that you mentioned, but switching a little and going a little deeper. Would you say, now that that early stage phase is moving into a growth stage phase? A CPO hat, a product hat, as well as a founder hat, right? So how does it work when both of these come together? Like where do you zoom out? Where do you zoom in? Like whenever you're doing both these things. So how do you balance between the two? Especially, there might be something that is super execution heavy. There might be the strategy that you need to look at. So how do you manage your time? How does that look at? Because it's a second time founder stint. Any learnings from the previous one that you are consciously trying to apply in this current stint?
Absolutely, great question. Yeah. So if you are the founder of a product company, you have to wear the product hat. In fact, you have to, wear it super strongly, right? Because because you have to live and breathe the customer persona in some sense, and that is why we are, as a company, we are committed to remote. We'll be remote till IPO, and because that puts us into the shoes of the customers, right? And we use our product day in day out. All our, we have stopped all Zoom subscriptions or all, Google Meet subscriptions. All our internal team meetings, collaboration, all hands, employee onboarding, marketing events, all happen on Airmeet, right? So we live and breathe the customer. We are our own very demanding customer. That is one. Second is, your question about when do you zoom out, right? So you really have to measure your health metrics as a business. As a product business, you really have to look at your metrics, and some metrics are your North Star metrics, which basically direct, which are telling you that you are moving in the right direction. And then there are health metrics. Health metrics are your NPS, your user rating, and your overall reviews, right? And then performance of the product platform, errors, etc. So health metrics, when they start to show you a different picture, when they start to decline, that is a stark, like the moment you start to see a unexpected trend in the health metric, that is that is one signal where you should immediately come out of the product hat and zoom out, and let's see, what else is happening in the landscape. Why is it that this is not moving? For example, our NPS right now is trending over 50, right? And this is constantly improving. The moment, let's say, if at all, God forbid, if the NPS goes down, if it starts to trend down, then that I would definitely step out, go and talk to those customers, maybe go and check out other competition product as well, right? More seriously, right? So that would be my sense.
And at the current stage you are in, do you think your day to day still involves a lot of product thinking? Are you still driving it? And how do you look at hiring? Like at one point, you definitely need to step back and say, okay, the CPO, if in case today Airmeet decides to, hand over. So, is there some learning from the previous stint that you had that you'd like to definitely implement here? Any learnings from there that you'd love to implement in your current, given that you are the liberty of a second time entrepreneur now?
Sure, sure.
Definitely
Yeah.
some pressure, but yeah,
Sure.
would love to learn
Sure.
from that experience.
Sure. I think so. There are many learnings, but in the context of product hiring and product leadership, I think one of the big learning is that delegation without clarity of goals is not right. In the earlier stint, I used to delegate to ease out my pressure, right? Because as a founder, there's lot of stress, and also somebody who has not seen a lot of corporate environments. If your company becomes like a 200 people company, and at Commonfloor it was like a 200 people product and technology team, right? So it was much beyond my own capabilities of managing a team, right? What so over there the hiring was mostly to get the people management and the cadence of executing delegated to somebody who is more senior and who has done it in the past, right? That is good, but along with that, what is more important is that once you delegate that, they really have to have some sort of a clear KPI and goals, right? You know it so we didn't do that really well in Commonfloor journey, right? And because it was the first time that we were delegating, right? Because when
Yeah.
you, as a founder, there are so many things in your head, and it's basically like a multi-dimensional space inside your head where you can quickly see the forward and backward implication of everything that you are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who's just joined and is taking the role of a product leadership in let's say a company like Airmeet, it would be very, very helpful to give them a prioritization framework, right? Which is KPIs. These are the North Star. These are the health KPIs. If that is not ready, they are probably they're just trying to do their best effort, but they're also not sure what is the outcome that they're going to optimize for. They will then just settle down into just managing whatever it is happening, and maybe give you that experience of delegation, but not progress, right? So I think delegation, if you're a founder, if you want to delegate, it's absolutely important to have the clarity of KRAs, KPIs that to the person you're delegating,
Right.
and also have a clear North Star, right? And if you don't have a North Star metric, there are many goal setting frameworks, but I personally prefer North Star because that sort of simplifies everything in the organization at our stage. Right? So if that is not there, I would say wait for that to get clear and then hire.
Interesting, interesting. And actually, that is the exact two questions that we have lined up for you next. One is around remote work. So the other one is around hiring. So coming to remote first, you guys started a distributed remote first team even before COVID, right? And today, most of us are probably in a situation where we need to work remote. So from a founder's perspective, what are some qualities or something that has worked when you see a lot of people working remote to maintain say productivity and at the same time not burn out? So what are something that you actively do at Airmeet that a lot of other companies can learn from and do it in today's situation?
Sure. Yeah. So I think we are also figuring that out as we are growing, right? So because we are now a 100 plus people team and fully remote, right? And I've only met one person, other than the founders, who's part of the team in person. Almost everybody, all rest of the 97 people are, I've not met in person, right? So definitely we are also figuring out what is the right, or what are the solutions to some of these problems. But what has worked out so far is that we have stuck to a cadence of doing all hands, right, on a very, very regular basis, right? So every 15 days, without a miss, we have to have a all hands. And now we have made the agenda of the all hands very democratic, right? So yesterday we had an all hands where we also had a panel discussion on how individuals are coping up with remote work, right? And that democratization of the agenda of the all hand is actually very good. It has worked out really well for us to bring up voices and participation from all levels of the organization. That is one. Second is that I'm just trying to plug our own product here, but our product is designed as a space, right? And we as a remote company use Airmeet as a one of the Airmeet is used as a like a cafeteria space for us. It's like our office space in some sense, right? Where you're not mandated to be present from 9 to 5. It's just that you have to come to Airmeet on a virtual table and have all your discussions on that, right? So and that gives a feeling of presence that at 11 o'clock in the morning I can see that my dev team is having their stand up. I can see that my marketing team is actually having some discussion on some campaign. My founders are having some discussion, right? So it gives me the feeling of a presence, right? It gives me that we're all together in something, and I can just click onto a link and enter into that conversation with you, and catch up also, right? So it has also helped us reinforce the feeling of togetherness, even though we are working remotely, right? And I would highly encourage, if you guys are, if any of the audience is working in a remote company, do encourage to your company to come and create an Airmeet and just start using this as a space, right? That is absolutely free of cost. and you can actually get the benefit of togetherness even while working remotely. And third is that you have to schedule non-work related conversations, right? So our HR team is doing a great job in terms of proactively scheduling one-on-one skip levels, and also we have recently come up with this concept called local chapter mates, right? So if you're locally, if you have more than two people, or more than one person in any city, you have a budget to come weekly meet. And once COVID is over, we probably will be doing our very first all hands in person at Goa or maybe any other destination like that.
Oh, nice. That's nice. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of that as a perk in a lot of remote first company, biannual offsite retreats. Where or annually or biannually where they meet together in a different place. I think that allows you because of in traditional you spend on office spaces, you spend on a lot of things. A part of that budget can definitely be used, and plus it's a team bonding, right? Like you mentioned, like 99% of your team today have not met each other in person, so definitely brings that element. So what are some other perks that only Airmeet has, which probably you didn't have, you couldn't do at Commonfloor, or you never did have at Commonfloor or any other traditional company? Is there anything you're thinking? Maybe even if it's not live yet.
Yeah, so once in a while we get some celebrity speakers, to visit our cafeteria, right? So
Nice.
it could be, let's say, the MD of Xiaomi India, or it could be a partner at Greylock, or it could also be a politician, like somebody like the ex first lady of US, right? So we do have some of these celebrities who are probably trying out Airbnb for their events as speakers, and then our support team, sometimes the founding team also can bring them to the cafeteria, and then we have some sort of a like an Airbnb with them. That's also some little bit of a perk.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely interesting.
yeah.
That's awesome. And for the paucity of time, moving right into the next segment is around hiring. Um, as a founder, do you still go directly? You mentioned you crossed 100 plus people on your team, right? So are you still involved in each hire? Do you still have that one conversation before you pick? Are you? Is there anything that you do very special in your hiring, or have you been able to decentralize it and give? Do you have a process that allows you to just trust your team to do the best job? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not an advocate of the founder doing every like founder talking to every person before they get on board, because then your time is becoming a bottleneck, right? I did practice this very advice from Google guys in the early days of Commonfloor, but then I quickly realized that this is not the best way to hire a team at a very fast pace, right? So we are not doing that at Airmeet. At Airmeet we have some sort of a core team which was handpicked, and these are some of the best guys that I know from my past network. I have absolute trust on them, absolute 100% faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're also thinking about the company more than I am thinking about the company, right? We are all working together like our own company. So, and I my job was to get this core team in place, and then and there's set some sort of a culture code, and then we just evaluate every candidate strictly on the culture code, and HR and this core team is very well aware of this culture code, and we just follow that. We don't I don't necessarily meet everybody.
Very interesting. Um, and a follow up on that is from the employee perspective. If in case you were to hire that core team very up, I mean, these were from your personal network, but beyond the core team, the first few hires, what are some qualities that you look for? One is definitely skill. But apart from that, if you say you had two candidates with a similar skill set, similar background, similar work ex, what is that one or two standout thing that definitely puts A over B for you personally?
Sure, absolutely. So, uh, one is that I'll give you two or three good qualities that I look at. Right?
Mm-hmm.
One is that how passionate are they about the domain, right? The problem that you're trying to solve, right? Because that becomes very important for you to give it your 100%, right? If you're not excited about the space, if you're just looking at it as a theoretical problem to solve, you'll bring your best to the work. That's fine. But then, if you're interested about it, if you're proactively imagining and solutioning, then definitely this is a plus. Second thing is, when I'm looking at resumes, two equally good resumes, I really look for people who have, done pro bono good stuff, pro bono good stuff is basically, either you have contributed to open source, or as a PM, you're actually, organizing such meetups, or you are, let's say, helping out startups and writing, let's say, you just have to publish your word, publish your knowledge out there. And so the fact is that if you publish your knowledge, the community makes, scrutinizes it and makes it better. So you end up learning more, right? If somebody hasn't done that, that is some sort of a red flag for me, right? Because in today's age, everybody is a marketer, and everybody is their own CEO, and everybody is their own chief marketing officer, right? So if you're not doing that, probably your mindset is still stuck in the past, right?
Yep, yep. Love that. I think love that and love the perk. Is the Airmeet hiring by any chance? I think a bunch of them are putting like interesting thing. I think Harshit says have to say the UI is beautiful. I think a bunch of them attending the session love your product. So is there any position that you are currently
Yeah,
looking out for?
absolutely. So we are definitely hiring senior product managers, and yeah. So and in fact, I reached out to you, and it was
Yeah.
great to see some good input from your internal share. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yep, yep. I think the community has grown, and I think with a lot of interesting startups coming up, I think this is good for both. Like community gets a chance to work with great startups, and as a result, I think everyone grows. So that is interesting. Thanks, Alan, for sharing that. So if in case you guys are interested, do check out. There's a job stream that Airmeet is hiring currently. It's in the chat section. Moving on to our next segment is around in general, like this is more on the personal side of things, around personal learning. How do you think you have grown as a person since those days, and you took a break? You mentioned you took a break between the two startups. So is there any specific things that you did that really helped you? Maybe you had a long stint at the previous thing, took some time off, thought of these ideas, and is there something that you suggest to a lot of people who are trying to grow personally? It could be reading, it could be doing different things. Is there any framework, anything that people here could apply?
Yeah. So during my long break, I think one big reason was to basically focus on personal life,
Yeah.
which is get settle in life and get married, etc. But then, other than that, I think what I really enjoyed was uh, looking at the mega trends which are happening in the industry, right? And in general, knowledge economy and tech in general, right? So almost on a monthly basis, I would go dive deep into one new thread. So it would be, let's say, March of 2018, this would be blockchain. And I would go super deep into blockchain, read a lot about it, or watch a lot of videos, and maybe articulate some sort of a problem that I, come about. And in my Evernote is actually, I did have every folder for every topic that I was very passionately pursuing, right? So just dive deep into, let's say healthcare, then blockchain, then let's say remote work, and these things. And I was deliberately doing that, not with the intention of going and finding an idea. It's just to, develop an understanding. And what really helped me is that, you basically absorb some meta level things from one vertical, and then you bring those to the other vertical, right? So there is definitely, dynamics of the healthcare ecosystem which in my mind were also applicable into blockchain, right? And some dynamics of blockchain which definitely I can say would be applicable in, let's say, HR space, right? So there were many innovative ideas which actually I came about and listed, and I was, there was a time in late 2018 that I thought I'll just start a fund, and they would probably invest in some of these ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that the life of a VC, according to me, was lack of action, right? So I thought there's a lot more action in me still left. So I thought maybe becoming a VC would be much later. So postpone all of that. But then what I would really encourage is that many people uh, explore these spaces, explore ideas and spaces in a horizontal sense, right? Best would be to dedicate your time, go deep into one thing, just for the curiosity of it, and it's okay to maybe come back and move on to the next idea, or move on to the next space, because
Yeah.
the very act of going deep and understanding some of these startups and spaces would actually open your brain, right? For example, when I was exploring healthcare, and it was a big surprise to me that in the US, the employers actually pay for insurance, right? And in fact,
Right.
employers are so large that they they that their corpus becomes like some sort of an insurance for everybody. There's no insurance company, but then there are these brokers which are managing the employee corpus, just which is taken aside. Now that is something which is not possible in India, right? Because of a lot of cheating that happens, right? But then that idea was so liberating, and it could be applied to some other domains, right?
Right.
So that way, you if you go deep, you'll enrich yourself and come back. And I also spend a lot of time, listening to podcasts, right?
Yep.
And there are a couple of podcasts that were like my regular thing, and that
Right.
would give me, like just any new thing that is coming up. Like I was a big follower of the A16Z podcast, right?
Uh-huh.
And they do a brilliant job in summarizing what's happening in the tech world, and that's my window into what's new, right? So I got to know about serverless computing from that. I got to know about biotech, what's happening in biotech from that, and then if it sort of strikes a chord of my curiosity, I would go deep into that. That was my time in 2018 to 2017 and 18.
Interesting, interesting. I think that is very interesting on the personal learning front. Another brief thing that you touched upon was around networking, right? So 10 years back when you started off to today, I think your network has automatically grown um, because of the startup journey that you had. But for a lot of other people on the chat, do you think networking is super important? A lot of people talk about how network is your net worth. Do you think that is super important, or what is some hack to building a great network today? Given we're in 2020, it is the internet age. What is something that you've seen? A community is also some way to connect people and build your network. So, what are some interesting things that you've seen over your journey?
Sure, sure. I actually look at networking from a social capital lens, right? Every interaction that two people have, right, beyond the pleasantries, there has to be some sort of a social capital deposit on either side, right? If there is no social capital deposit, the connection doesn't have any value, right?
Hmm.
So I have my own theory on how acquaintances become connections, right? And basically so ultimately focus on adding value to the other person, and there are so many ways of adding value at scale, right? So Twitter, blogging, start a podcast or start a Substack, or maybe create an Airmeet event or a series of events, right? There are so many ways in which you can actually add value to a lot more people at scale, right? So in some sense you are depositing social capital in individuals. Let's say people who are hearing this event right now, who are joining us on this event right now, right? And if at all I'm adding value to them, if they're getting to learn something, I'm basically making a social capital deposit into with them, right? And that is in some sense, there is a one-way connection, but then it's still really relevant, right? And always look at networking from this lens, and you'll really find more innovative and better ways to do network. Yeah. Today, Twitter is a great resource. On Twitter, you can actually, if you have something which is very relevant and crisp, you can get a response from anybody in the world, right? From Naval Ravikant to Elon Musk, you can actually get a response, right? But then it's up to you to how to, again, I would say strike the right conversation and take it forward.
Absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree with you there. The entire community that Alan's also here, we met first through Twitter. Most of the product for community has grown through Twitter. So definitely agree on that point. It's a huge, huge aid. And yeah, just digging a little deeper into the social capital bit that you mentioned. How does this tie with, like, oftentimes it happens like you do find a great people who aren't so public, right? Like people doing their stuff and they're happy there. Other side, that is one side of the theory. Other side, a lot of people who are super public, and then it gets lost, right? You think it's important to find that balance, right? You be public, but at the same time build your skill set. So how is there any framework that you use to balance both of them? Because everyone has 24 hours. Some people are able to do it perfectly, and the others are learning. So is there anything that you found from the people that you worked with?
Sure, sure. Yeah. I think you touched upon a very, very important point. So there are many, many people out there who are just creating noise, right? Who are just maybe, maybe repurposing the same knowledge, or maybe misunderstanding something and, republishing into like new knowledge, right? So I'm not talking about those people who are just creating noise and thinking that doing all of that is going to build their social capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, you have to share or write or publish for your own good.
Yep.
So it's a commonly it's a common best practice that a very well known best practice that if you write, you get more clarity in your own thoughts, right?
Correct.
So your primary objective of writing a blog post about whatever you've learned or whatever you're thinking is to get your clarity for yourself and then publish it so that other people who find it relevant also read and contribute. And this is basically an asynchronous discussion that happens with the globe, right? At
Mm-hmm.
scale, you can actually have an asynchronous discussion about the content that you just published, right?
Yep.
So definitely try to create some unique value, right? And don't just try to repurpose or just repost or retweet stuff which is already going on here and there. So the balance would be, to even in your knowledge consumption, go deep and wide, in like in periods, right? So there are many people who just consume Twitter and then they think they are more knowledgeable because Twitter is that one in that 140 or 240 character limit. It can
Mm-hmm.
give you an articulation or a quote, right? But then there is a journey of a lifetime behind that quote which you are not there,
Mm-hmm.
which you don't have, right?
Correct.
That journey of a lifetime and the learnings and the context and a lot of things which are missing from that quote, right, which makes the quote more relevant in various
Yeah.
situations, those are missing, right? So definitely read a lot of books also, as well as go wide in terms of your exploration on these social media platforms, but
Mm-hmm.
also go back to books and some really high quality material that is very very well recommended, and build the depth in the subject. And
Yeah. No,
definitely,
that's a great idea.
and there is no replacement of doing so. Definitely also keep building stuff,
Yep.
because
Yep.
that teaches you the most.
No, absolutely love that. I think, go to Twitter for the breadth, pick the topics that you want to go dig deeper, like you mentioned, the monthly sprint is great, go deeper into the topic that you love for a month, zoom out, go to the next one. I think that's a great framework. And at the same time, a little bit of networking that will help you, in the longer term. That's a longer term strategy. And yeah, building is something that, yeah, do try. I think this is perfectly and super relevant for the product community. Last question before we jump into the audience section, and we'll come back to our rapid fire towards the end. This is around longer term thinking. So you mentioned, while you were taking a break and trying to think of the next idea, you were thinking about the next decade. And Commonfloor, you built it out for quite some time. So how do you develop that? No one knows where the world will be in say 2030, but it's great that you think about things in that lens, right? Hey, what will be relevant for 2021 to 2029? Is there something that specifically helped you build a longer term thinking, given that in today's era we are all looking for short term feedback? Apps like Instagram have only increased that. So what are some strategies that help you there? Is that something you do consciously?
Sure, sure. So one thing I do is that I invest into using the best of the class products, right? So, um, you know, I use the best MacBook, I use the best phone, just to basically see, what this will lead me to, right? Because these products are built for a persona, right? That persona is probably defining, what's next, right? So I try to be that persona, right? That's my only hack in some sense, right? And I
Very.
think that's I mean, there was a time where I thought maybe moving to Silicon Valley would maybe bring me those ideas, but then thankfully we will build a remote Silicon Valley during this pandemic. So Silicon Valley is no more that important. But then my only hack is that be that persona, and then things will happen automatically.
Fingers crossed. That gives me an idea. Alan, we should start a new Airmeet thing called Remote Silicon Valley and try to get the best of people. Ladit, if you're game for this, we could get like the best of people. I'm pretty sure you're well connected and we could get the best of people and create that remote. That's a great idea. I think I love that. So, yep, and on Airmeet, so that should be interesting too. But yes, jumping right into the audience questions, we have a couple of them. We'll pick up the top voted ones. So, guys, if you like any of the questions, feel free to upvote. We'll pick that up. First one that I see here is what Harshit asked is, uh, do you think Airmeet can grow into a video platform similar to Twitch? Are you guys in a similar space? Would you guys consider Twitch to be? Uh,
So
or
we are
similar?
so we are actually focused on the knowledge economy, right? And Twitch is more of an entertainment in some sense, right? It's basically your free time. You spend your free time. Uh, we will not have that flavor, but we can become the Twitch for the knowledge economy for sure, right? But we'll be a lot more interactive. Our focus is on real time engagement through virtual events right now. But who knows how the evolution will be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anurag asked, during your time while building Commonfloor, there are many different directions the company could have gone in. How did you prioritize and pick those right features on what you will do and you won't do? Example, you could have gone in, a competitor's direction, which really grew, but you picked specific segments. So, is there any framework that you're currently applying from the learnings there to the Airmeet journey?
For sure. Yeah. So I think during the common flow days, so our journey into the real estate was, uh, I'll just give spend some 1 or 2 minutes on that. So
Yeah,
we became the supply side partner for brokers, right? All other portals back in 2010 or 9, they were giving brokers the demand, but Commonfloor was the only portal which was giving them the property supply, because we had a community software for apartment communities, right? And then close to 20,000 communities were using that, and we would help the broker know that a certain property is available, and this owner might be requiring a help, right? So we were the supply side partners. So our relationship with the broker was the first step into our real estate business, right? We stepped into real estate with broker as a partner, and hence our worldview was centered around broker. We did not want to replace broker. We wanted to make the broker professional. We wanted to take all the negative things which are attached to a broker and empower them to become the best broker out there, right? So that was our strategy, right? And and we took all the right decisions to just maybe to basically build on that strategy. Yeah. And
well,
and just maybe coming back to Airmeet, I think at
yeah,
Airmeet what we are focused on is, see, we want to replace the venue, right? So the physical venue should be an archaic term for any knowledge centric event. Unless you're doing a rock concert or doing a culinary Italian food bonanza, you should
yeah,
not be requiring a venue, right? So that is what our clear focus is. We have to bring in all possible, every possible interaction ability, the liveliness, and the comfort and the sensibilities of a venue to the knowledge economy, so that knowledge economy truly departs from the location dependence. Right now, there is still a lot of location dependence, right, where you are sort of results into what kind of people you are mingling with, what kind of opportunities are open to you, right, what kind of people that you are maybe approach you in terms of like work, etc. Right. So we want to basically if I were to in a nutshell say, our mission is to uh, fix the asymmetry of participation in shaping the future, right? So the future that all of us are now living, which is influenced by Google, Facebook, self-driving cars, artificial intelligence. If you look at the contribution, some geographies have disproportionately contributed to that, right? And all of us are now just living a future which was created in Silicon Valley, right? So
fair.
I want to fix that. I want to make the future uh, which rightfully is created by everybody and irrespective of the location.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We'll pick one more question from the questions tab. I think the CEO of Acta asks, "What is one channel that allows you to reach the right customer? Is there a specific GTM strategy that's worked for you?" I think this is in relation to Airmeet.
Yeah. I think so. We look at organizations who specifically have a job role for event manager, event marketer, or event coordinator, right? Because right now our core offering is ability to conduct virtual events, with high real time engagement, and and organizations who have a recurring need of these events, they would already have a job role with events, as focus, right? And we basically look up for those people on LinkedIn or wherever, and then we reach out to them. That has really worked out well for us, and we are also growing quite aggressively just through word of mouth. So 25% of our inbound traffic, basically, people have already attended. So yeah. attending. So 22 to 25% people come back and create their own event.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's interesting. Couple of more questions, but we'll jump right into the rapid fire that we have for you. I think covers a couple of interesting points. So, three questions that we have. You mentioned that you listen to a lot of podcasts. So, any three that you'd like to recommend for our audience today, or the top
Sure,
three that? Yep.
sure. So one is the A16Z podcast, big fan. Second is Curious Minds. Curious Minds is so basically basically about book reviews and book authors are invited, and these are all non-fiction books, right? And the third is NFX. The NFX they've recently done a really good job in terms of collating a lot of interesting articles also in audio format. So I love those.
Awesome, awesome. Next one is three folks that you'd like to give a shout out to that might have played an integral role in your life, or people that you think we should definitely connect with our community.
So are you looking at like people that I consider as mentors or people who just influenced my life?
More on people, yep, exactly. Your mentors and people who maybe you have worked with, who you think are great people that people here should definitely reach out to learn from, or just follow. It could be that.
Sure, absolutely. So I would first of all count, Sumit Jain. Sumit Jain was the co-founder of Commonfloor, my
Mm-hmm.
previous co-founder. He actually, I was like a hardcore techie, in
Mm-hmm.
Commonfloor, and for the first 8 years, I was actually writing code, right? And so he definitely is someone that I reach out to for in general bouncing off a lot of ideas, and then Vikas Malpani again, the co-founder from the previous journey, and then and I think one other personality that I've sort of gotten sort of in some sense I keep learning from is Gaurav Munjal from an academy, right?
Right.
Because so he's somebody that he used to work with me in Commonfloor, but then he has this distinct personality. He's a very tough manager, and I was the most easygoing manager that you could ever imagine, right?
Uh-huh.
So and I could see this the negative effects of being super easygoing, and he was
Okay.
absolutely contrast, right? So I think looking at him, I'm actually able to come midway, become like a tough, I wouldn't say a tough manager, but let's say a tough internal customer of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I would say he's definitely somebody who has had an influence on how to stand for quality, how to absolutely reject mediocre work. Earlier I used to accommodate mediocrity just because I was nice, right? Now I've sort of shed that flavor, and I'm absolutely brutally honest about whether something is mediocre or not. Yeah, that's
Very
something that I've picked up.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think I love his Substack as well. I think he puts out some interesting things, but didn't know about the tough side and the tough managers. So I think that's great. Last question, but very interesting. One of our favorites is if you knew then what you know now. So is there anything that you would like to go back and tell a 25-year-old Lalit on some learnings that you've had now, especially something that you think would have helped you back then? That's something that you know now.
25-year-old Lalit. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So 25-year-old Lalit would have been co-founder of Commonfloor. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would definitely go and talk to him about is spend less time coding and go talk to your users a lot more. Second thing that I want to go and tell him is that uh, be your own customer, right? As much as possible, be the customer. Try to buy a
Mhm.
property even though you don't have the budget, right? Because
Okay.
that would teach you a lot more than maybe going and talking to a customer. You yourself trying to attempt the problem is the real mother of all teachings. Yeah.
Very
In fact,
interesting.
in fact, if I were to do a real estate portal again, I would set aside 2 crore rupees just for my product management team to keep buying selling.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Buying and selling, and then that could make an additional revenue stream for you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But
There would be
super
KPI. It would be
interesting.
their KPI to
Very interesting. I think Lalit, love this chat with you. Couple of more questions flowing in, guys. Lalit, I think what would be the best way to connect with you? Is it okay if they tweet out some questions at you whenever you're free? Maybe you could pick these out, or do you think writing to you or LinkedIn? Which channel is the best for you?
I think Twitter might not be that great because
Okay.
it's sometimes constrained. You can actually connect me
Right.
on LinkedIn, and I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I can best would be to direct message me, and I can reply back.
Okay. Awesome, guys. So if you guys have any further questions, I love this chat, Lalit. I think a lot of interesting frameworks, a lot of things that we can actually go back and apply. And looking forward to the Airmeet journey. I know you guys have some interesting launches coming up, so yep, looking forward to that. But thank you so much for your time today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any feedback, feel free to DM us. If you guys enjoyed it, do give the product folks as well as tag Lalit and give us a shout out. We'd love that. And if there's anything else that you would like to see, any particular set of speakers or anything that you think could be improved in this, our Twitter DMs are always open. So thank you so much once again for joining us. You guys have a great weekend, and thanks once again, Lalit and Alan, for putting this together. So thank you
So
for joining us, Lalit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
thanks,
Thanks,
Suhas.
Lalit.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alan.
Suhas. Just a quick plug about our next event. Our next event is happening on December 5th. It is with Aniket Behira. He's the CEO of Brightcam, ex Hotstar. So do check it out. I'll share the link in chat section as well. Once again, thank you so much, Lalit, for your time. Thank you, Suhas. It was a great
Thanks,
session.
buddy.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.